Welcome to Behind the Backline, the podcast where we chat with merchants, brands, and industry professionals in the musical instrument, pro audio, and event technology space about their products, services, industry trends, stories, and more. Join us now as we dig into the stories behind our favorite backline gear.
Welcome to episode 21 of Behind the Backline. I'm Matt Jacoby of Octave Media, and today I am talking with Carl Thompson of Istanbul Mehmet Cymbals. Thank you for joining me today, Carl.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you guys. You're in Los Angeles, correct?
Yes, I'm based in Los Angeles. The company is still based very much in Turkey, but we have a base here in LA in the Palm Desert as well. So.
Cool. Let's I guess start off with having you kind of introduce yourself, what your role is, and what Istanbul Mehmet does.
I do artist relations and a bit of social media marketing and branding for the company, primarily here in the USA and other parts in the world. Istanbul Mehmet is primarily a boutique cymbal company, creating handmade cymbals all the way from Turkey.
Cool. Yeah. So is that kind of, that's not very common anymore, is it? Like is it a lot of them are machined now versus truly handmade?
Yeah, I think some of the bigger brands, a lot of it is machine made. I think the handmade stuff still does happen within some of the bigger brands, but primarily, just for the amount of cymbals that some of the bigger brands may make, it's practically impossible, I would imagine, for them to hand make 100% of the cymbals. But with Mehmet over in Turkey, everything is 100% handmade. That's why sometimes we do have a shortage here and there, but it's just purely because they're boutique, they're 100% handmade. There's no machines involved apart from the odd bit of lathing, which you would have to do. But all handmade in the oven and hand hammered. Yeah.
That's so unheard of and just super impressive in today's high-tech world of, produce, but, quality over quantity sometimes.
Yeah, it is. And that's why one of the things with Istanbul Mehmet that I love is each cymbal is different, just ever so slightly. We do have a good consistency between our lines, but with them being handmade, there's just a bit of soul left in there, and you can hit 218 crashes and they'll sound just ever so slightly different, but still have the same quality. But that's what I like about it. If you get a chance to visit the factory or visit one of our warehouses out here, is just to have a play, and you'll see what I mean about handmade. Just makes it just a little bit special.
Awesome. Yeah. I've been a drummer for 24 years. I started in grade school, the whole high school thing, but I feel like we had in Istanbul maybe crash cymbals at one point along the way. I don't know if I've ever had them on a set, but I do remember that they were a cymbal choice really early on for me, and I when I did not know that there were different types of cymbals, still kind of learning my ropes and everything. But that only goes back so far. But how long has Istanbul Mehmet been its own company?
Well, Istanbul Mehmet has been its own company from the from the mid 90s. The company started many years ago, in the late 70s, early 80s, and where it started was there was two main cymbal smiths, and you may be aware, you may not. There's Mehmet and a Gop, and basically they used to work for the Zilken factory back in the late 50s and 60s, and learned a lot of their trade through the Zilken factory, which was essentially the Zildjian factory. And then what happened was they decided to shift all their production to the US, primarily move the company there. So the factory in Turkey was kind of left a bit derelict. So Agop and Mehmet decided that they would create their own brand, Istanbul. They were first named Zildjian, actually, but soon afterwards it just went down as Istanbul. And both of the craftsmen signed each of the cymbals, and there were many of those cymbals now are collector's item. But what happened was, as Mehmet just being as one company, they split in the mid 90s, and sadly Agop died and his family decided they wanted to take the brand for themselves and just split the company. So that's when it kind of happened, and we have Istanbul Mehmet and Istanbul Agop. There can be quite a bit of confusion between the two brands because they both love the Istanbul logo, and they're both very proud of that. So, and many people don't know, even to this day, I get emails from potential artists or customers who might want a particular symbol, and it might not be from us, or they'll mix Mehmet and Agop, and they just think that Mehmet and Agop are different lines from Istanbul. And while at one point that was probably the case, now it's not, unfortunately. They're just two separate companies. But yeah, it was kind of around, sorry, there was a long-winded answer, but primarily around the 1990s was when they split.
Okay. Yeah, no, that was perfect. I was among them of thinking that the two names were just product lines, and it never really occurred to you that's like, oh, this is, how often does this happen? Probably just this once, that there's two companies with the same logo.
Yeah, it is very confusing, and we try, and that's one of my jobs here, is to try and differentiate, between the two brands, and while there's no bad blood between the two companies, at the end of the day, they are still competitors, but we just want to kind of make our own and just create our own stamp and like what we like what we do. So we want to just be proud of what we do and make it our own.
Yeah, there's definitely nothing wrong with that. I mean, if everybody's happy, you guys have your own philosophies, everyone's willing to share the logo, why not?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, as I said, it does get a bit confusing, but I think both brands are now trying to do their own thing to still have the brand and the logo, but differentiate to themselves.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad that they managed to keep the good blood and just move forward with what they were doing. So you kind of said when they started, but do you know, or what was kind of the story behind, like, why did they get into cymbals?
Oh, I mean, Mehmet's been making cymbals since he was about 9 years old. I think it was just one of the family traditions. You kind of, when you're very young, you get involved in what your other family members are doing, and he just kind of found himself gravitating towards making cymbals. And there's a lot of history online about it. There's quite a good little documentary, actually, which will probably go far more in depth than what I can do. But yeah, it was just a thing that he grew up doing, and they worked them very young back in the day, and he's got so many years of knowledge. It's crazy. So I think that was it. It just gravitated towards him, and he found something that he loved to do and was excellent at. And yeah, it just carried on, and he had many mentors that would just help him develop his knowledge and his craft. And yeah, that was it really. Just kind of, I think it just found him.
Cool. Yeah, it's nice that you kind of hear the stories of people finding their passion way decades ago, but it's almost like a trend now to find your passion. Like, that's cool because of like the internet. But yeah, I mean, people have been doing it forever, and I'm glad that he got to stick with it and has been happy ever since.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and he knows exactly what he's doing when it comes to making cymbals. So, but yeah,
he sounds like someone that would be fun to meet just once.
Yeah, he's at the NAMM show. He'll pop in, and but this last year, unfortunately, he couldn't make it. But hopefully, we'll see him again. And I would like actually to do like a meet and greet with him, because I think people will get a buzz from seeing somebody that's been in it this long. There's not many people in the industry that have been around this long left still making their instruments. Like, it was sad that we lost Vic Firth a few years ago, and he was one of those guys, and of course we lost Agop back in the 90s. But Mehmet is, he's one of the last living guys, one of the last living legends, as I like to think, who is still making the thing that people used to play back in the 60s. Some of the early Zildjian cymbals, you'll find his name on their cymbals, or if it's been kept in that good a condition, but there's nobody left that I know of anyway. But Mehmet that's the thing that's special, I think, about him, and that people would get if they met him, But yeah, if you're ever at NAMM, which I know you are, come by the booth and you'll see him hopefully this year. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Good to know. Yeah. Because you mean kind of like the people who are originally or who started a company, because you could say like, well, Zildjian's been around for
sure
a really long time, but of course, they're generations of family members now, so you can't say you can be the original.
Yeah, no, of course, I'm not taking anything away from the heritage of Zildjian. Or
yeah.
As I say, it's just he was there when Zildjian first started. In respect of, he was a craftsman there, and I don't think there are many of the craftsmen that were there back in that day left. And that have been making the cymbals for so long. I mean, obviously, time moves on, and that's just life. People die, and generations evolve, and that's what it is. But it's just nice to see that there's still somebody there. That's one thing that we really cherish. We've got that history still so fresh, and the heritage so fresh within our company.
Cool. Now, I almost kind of get the feeling, and I could be wrong because I haven't necessarily talked to a ton of drum makers yet, but just one, I think, to date. But it almost feels like there's a deeper emotional connection, or like even more blood, sweat, and tears put into the art of cymbal making than there is in the art of shell making or drum making. Would you say that's true, or that everyone just has their own levels of passion depending on what they're in?
I think it goes both ways. I think, if you tried to make a drum, you'd feel very passionate about that drum. I'm sure there would be
sure.
fingers, and you'll be there'll be blood all over the shell at some point, and you'll feel very passionate about that drum by the end of it. And but yeah, it's a different environment, making a cymbal, you can be in a very, very hot position for a long time around the ovens, and you sat there hammering away. And a drum, you can bend that shell, or you can chop the wood, and it's a different process. But I definitely, I know a lot of drum makers and craftsmen who are just as passionate about their drums as cymbals are. So I don't think it's fair to say
that's true.
that making cymbals is a lot harder, and there's more passion in it. One thing that I do think, though, is that the way that a cymbal is made can create a lot of different characteristics, more so than I believe a drum. Because there's obviously the material of the bronze and the B20 bronze, and the different materials that people use to make cymbals obviously does make a difference. But the way in which you hammer that, or the way in which you lathe that, is very much dependent on how the cymbal sounds. With the likes of a drum, you're really, from what I've gathered, is you're really at the mercy of the wood. Yes, you can create a different bearing edge, and you can have a more open drum, a more closed drum. You can add different hardware, but as to what you do to the wood, it's, we're in very much a modern society now where we're used to the sound of a drum, as we are a cymbal, but we're used to the sound of a drum, and it has to fit in a certain frequency response with an engineer or any particular song. So I think in that respect that a cymbal has a little bit more, the craftsman can put a little bit more difference in the sound from what they do, more so than what a drum maker could do. Obviously, drum makers and the way they do them will create a different sound for sure. You can play a Craviotto, you can play a Guru, you can play a sugar percussion, and they'll all sound different. And that's primarily down to the wood and the way that the bearing edges is done and the hardware that's on it, but also a touch of the craftsman. So, but I think it flips a bit more. I think there's probably 15% of what the craftsman does makes a drum sound different, as opposed to a cymbal. It can be 40% of what the craftsman does to a cymbal, and the raw elements as to how it sounds. So I think in that respect that then it creates more passion in that respect. But I would definitely say that it's a pretty even keel as to, taking away someone's passion. But
no, it probably is a very unfair question because, of course, there are two different things. But it just, coming from a player standpoint, like, there could be a little bit of similarity, but not to put you on the spot. But yeah, actually, you bring up a kind of a good point because I felt like that when you were talking about quality and the craftsmanship, when you're, the fact that they're all handmade. Does this result in each cymbal being like even a 1/100th unique of each other? I mean, is there any consistency? Like, say, if you have one of your cymbal lines, do all of the cymbals in that line sound the same, or is it just because that they were all handcrafted that they all have their own unique characteristics?
They do. We have a level of consistency, and we do have, we have specific. Let's say we're doing a traditional cymbal. We know how many lathing marks need to be on it. We know how many hammers need to be on it. We know what type of hammering pattern we're doing, and we know what size the cut bell is, what size the edge is going to be, and the bow of the cymbal. So obviously we do have those measurements, which will keep us in a ballpark. But obviously, when you throw a hammer down, you're not going to hit every cymbal in the exact same point every time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what creates a slight difference in the character. And obviously, we do get slight difference in weight of the cymbals as well. So a lot of the time, you might have seen through many different dealers, whether it's Pro Drum or Maxwell, where they'll actually put the gram size on there, because that does add a difference. But generally we'll have if we do a traditional ride, we might have a gram size. I'm just pulling numbers out of my head here right now.
Sure.
Between 1,800 grams and 2,100 grams. And we know that anywhere in between there, that's what we've got as a traditional ride. Obviously, it's usually a bit smaller than that, but just to give you an example, that's how we kind of have those. We have these guidelines of where they should be in terms of weight, the shape of the cymbal, and how many hammer marks, how many lathe marks. But because of they're handmade, those lathe marks might be slightly millimeter difference, apart. So they're going to give a slight different characteristic. Not 90% difference, but maybe 5 to 10% difference in the sound. But that's what I like. I mean, I think that's what Mehmet likes, and that's what a lot of our customers and lovers of our cymbals love, is the fact that they're a bit more live when you play them, and they have their own soul, and you can play a few different cymbals and they don't sound the same every time you hit them.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can get a few different tones out of one crash cymbal just because it's handmade. Whereas I've worked in a drum shop many years ago, and you could hit one particular brand that comes to memory, which I won't mention, but they could hit that cymbal from anywhere in the shop, or I could be anywhere myself, and I could just know what cymbal they just hit. Oh, it's a 16-inch crash.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great if people really want that consistency, and it's just like it's exact every time. So like if they need to swap out a cymbal, that's brilliant. And I'm not saying that we're so far away from that, but I can, if someone was to play our cymbals, I'll be like, okay, yeah, I know the range of our cymbals, but they don't sound exactly the same every time. So I could go, yeah, okay, they're hitting a 16-inch traditional, but it's a little bit more nuanced, and it just has a variance between a couple of cymbals, and you could put 3 16-inch cymbals and they'll sound ever so slightly different. One might be a little bit warmer, one might be a touch darker. But I'm talking minute, differences.
Mm-hmm.
Not something that you go, oh well, that sounds like a traditional cymbal and that one sounds like a Turk, and they're both traditionals. No, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It's just a very slight overtone and a very slight underlying feel.
And that's awesome. I think the fact that they sound slightly different gives every drummer a chance to have their own quote unquote custom cymbal, which is kind of nice. Yeah.
And I feel like a drummer, gets off on that. They'll listen to it. They'll go into a store and they'll play a bunch and they'll be like, yeah, I really like that one over that one. And it gives them a little bit more customization as to what they want their cymbal sound to sound like.
Because we can all be picky. Brands, sounds, sizes, everything.
For sure, 100%.
So typically, like, what is kind of the timeline? How long does it take to make a cymbal? I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it depends. I mean, are you talking like a new line, or are you just talking all right, we want to make a 16-inch crash?
Yeah, just more of the not manufacturing, but like just the hand creation process from raw material to finished product.
Yeah. So for it starts off as just a block of metal. Then they heat it up, they lay it out, and then goes into the oven. It comes out. It then has to cool. And realistically, the way that we're dealing with it right now is, I mean, you could essentially make a cymbal in a day if you really want to go for it. But I think and we do, we make them in, it could be a couple of hours if you want to go for it. But I think the way that we process it now is we do a lot of the blanks first, and then they set them out to dry, and they bake for a little bit, and then they pick and choose. So I mean, it's hard to say exactly how on one cymbal basis, but yeah, it can take a few hours, I would say, by the time you've let it cool. And some people cool them by just dunking them in cold water, but that's not the way we want to go with it. But it's hard to say. I'm not at the factory that often, so I can't say. I'm sure the guys at the factory, I could do it in 4 hours or 5 hours. But yeah, it's definitely, you could. I would imagine from my experience seeing it's a few hours.
Okay. That sounds reasonable. Or like, it sounds like it's a week-long process. And because I think you said, sometimes there's a occasional shortage just because they are handmade, but it's not like you're weeks behind because of that. They're made a little bit quicker than that.
No, for sure. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, cool. So yeah, I kind of wanted to like touch on, assuming that it's public knowledge that what kind of or who that are some of the drummers we might know that are Istanbul Mehmet artists.
Yeah. So we have a wide range of artists. We have Rick Latham, who did that great advanced funk studies book, and then we have El Negro, Horacio Hernandez. And there's Robbie Amin, we've got Vinny Appice. There's quite a lot. I mean, our artist roster has a wealth of knowledge and a lot of history behind them. So, but one thing that I'm trying to do right now is get some more of the younger guys on board. We've got some great up and coming artists. Off the top of my head, who was I speaking to today? Jaden Bean. He's a great artist playing with a group called Missio right now, but he's a phenomenal artist who not just plays the electronic style like that with this particular band. He's a phenomenal jazz player. He's a great fusion player, great pop player, everything in between. So we have a range of artists. In the UK, we have a great artist called Matt Cowley, who's primarily a blues drummer. He plays with a guy called Big Boy Bloater, and you would think they were straight out of America. Their blues knowledge and their feel is fantastic, and Matt's doing great things right now. So we have a whole host of artists. Some of them you may not know, but some of them you will, like Robbie and Rick and Horacio. So yeah, we've got a good bunch, and we love them all dearly. But that's primarily our top artists, as you say. We're always looking for new artists and people who love our cymbals first and foremost. And that's one of the things that I look for as an artist relations, is that the person who's coming on board really truly loves the cymbals and isn't just in it for cheap gear.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the artists that I brought on recently are just huge fans of the cymbals first and foremost. Even if they've only played one and they're like, there's just something about this ride. Like Jaden, he he played a range of cymbals, but he had an old Mehmet, like one of the first Mehmets that came out.
Wow.
The jazz ride, and he was like, I can't get away from this ride. Like, I don't know what it is, but I just can't get away from it. And he only owned the one Mehmet, and now he's been a huge proponent of the cymbals, and he's working on trying a few custom items that he wants made and stuff. But it's just, that's a big thing for us. It's a very much a family oriented business, and and we like to create this family environment, and we want people to love what they play. It's not just because you've got a huge brand and you're going to give us a lot of cymbals, and it's like, no, we're here because you want to play us, and we want to, and likewise we want to support you in what you do. If we can promote you, and we can push you, and we can help you get gigs, even whatever it may be, that's our passion behind it. But yeah, that's what we look for in our artists, and all of our artists, as I say, whether it's Rick Latham, who's been with us so many years now, as Horacio, and Robbie, they're all really passionate about the cymbals.
Awesome. Now, do any of them or do you guys make any artist branded lines, or is it just that they use all the ones that you standard make by hand?
We have many signature lines.
Okay.
So our most popular signature line is Horacio's, the Horacio El Negro Hernandez signature cymbals. They've got this really cool brushed finish, and he has this quirky green logo, and I personally use his ride cymbal because it's my favorite ride cymbal that we do.
Cool.
But his stuff is fantastic. We do have Snowy Shore ride, who's a European guy. Eric Smith, who's another European French guy, who's a great jazz player, does many different things. We've got his line, which is he has a hat ride and a swish ride as well. So, and then we've got the signature. The other signature stuff is stuff that Mr. Mehmet has dedicated to some of his mentors. So we have a Kirkor. I'm probably going to say this wrong. Again, I can't. It's a hard.
It's okay.
The Kirkor K ride, and we've just actually expanded that to hats and crash, and this was all based around Mr. Mehmet's main mentor, who helped him back in the day craft, his knowledge and his trade. So, and we also have one of our biggest signature lines, which is a bit different, is our Tony Williams tribute cymbals. So they're not essentially a signature line, although they're primarily a tribute cymbal. Tony's wife, Colleen, came to us many years ago and wanted to have a signature line for Tony. And while Tony played primarily Zildjians, again, Colleen knew who made Tony's cymbals back in the day, and it was Mehmet. She'd sourced who'd made the cymbals that Tony was playing, and it was a complete honor for Mr. Mehmet to make those. He's met Tony on a bunch of occasions and has become friends, and when he was still alive, and he was just so thankful that Colleen had come to him and asked him to produce these cymbals. And that's kind of, right now, I think that's Mr. Mehmet's, flagship. That's what he loves the most, and that's what, we definitely sell a lot of them. And they did start out as a limited edition set. We started off with a 100 limited edition set, which came with a few goodies. I had a nice leather bag and a certificate and a lot of pictures from Tony and Colleen. And then it just became so popular, and Colleen wanted to continue, and I think we did too. So we decided to continue them as separate items this last year. And this past year, and it's just they're wonderful cymbals. They're very, very much the how close they are to Tony cymbals is staggering, if you ask me. And it's apart from minus the cracks that Tony cymbals had. As we all know, he was a big proponent of playing his cracked cymbals. But there's some more awesome info online, and you can see pictures of Tony's original cymbals that we got to use to mold our version of them, and to listen back to them. So Mr. Mehmet could play the cymbals that he'd made originally and hear, okay, this is how it sounds now, and this is what people are used to from those Miles Davis records. And so yeah, that's another huge signature cymbal, if you like, or a tribute cymbal, should we say, that we do.
That's a really awesome story. I love it.
Yeah, it's a cool one, and it's kind of, as I say, I'm barely brushing upon the details of this. I know I waffle on quite a bit, but there's far more details if you go online and check it out. There's some great stories of the whole process.
No, you covered it great in the perfect detail, for what we're doing here. And if you want to check it out online, definitely. So as a good segue into that, I wanted to, our last question, just kind of wanted to see if you could share the website and some of your maybe social media platforms so people could check out more about cymbals.
The website is istanbulmehmet.com, and all of our social media is at Istanbul Mehmet. Nice and simple.
That's easy enough to remember, and we'll also put some links on the show notes for those too, so people can check them out. So, well, thank you for joining me today. This has been great.
Well, thank you for having me. I hope I haven't waffled on too much and given you earache, but thank you for having me.
Nope, you did perfect. So, well, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Matt.
Thank you for listening to Behind the Backline, brought to you by Octave Media, an inbound marketing agency focused on helping music merchants develop an automated solution to increase website sales. You can find Octave Media at www.octave.media. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast in iTunes or Google Play Music to learn more about great products and companies in the musical instrument, pro audio, and event technology space, and be sure to leave a review to let us know what you thought of this episode. We encourage you to share us with your friends and colleagues via social media, and we'll see you next time. Take care.